Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In today's video we will be exploring on how to make a volumetric cloud in Unreal Engine 4.27. This also works in Unreal Engine 5 with no problems. This tutorial goes in full depth on how to create your very own volumetric cloud texture. Or material, actually, not a texture. This material will work perfectly for people who are looking for, almost, I wouldn't say photorealistic, but almost photorealistic volumetric clouds. Highly detailed, that can move through the scene, can cast shadows on your ground, is affected by the sun atmosphere, and has all the bells and whistles. It is using the volumetric cloud generator that comes with the Unreal Engine, but it further develops on that material capability to make it far more advanced. Now, one thing that I would say is that you can get the project files that I've used in this particular tutorial. You can get the project files that contain the material, the volumetric material already preset for you to use. It also contains an entire auto material for your landscape. So it comes as a bonus feature where you can just go and sculpt the landscape and it changes automatically based on height level. So if you want to create a mountain, it automatically knows and picks that up and starts adding cliff faces, because obviously a mountain is going to have cliffs. And the textures themselves have their own auto-generated biomes, meaning that if you're painting with a grass on the ground, it will automatically load, so a texture of a grass, it will automatically load certain type of plants that instance over on that texture. And if you're using mud in another area, then there will be no grass that's growing in that area, because mud obviously wouldn't allow it for it to happen. Or where you have cliffs, you won't see any plants being generated automatically, because again, it is a cliff. So if you want to manually add plants, you can do that. But as I've said to you, this is an auto material. It works out of the box and it's really good. It's part of these project files. And also part of the project file, you're going to get about 4 to 5 different species of plants, bushes, 3 types of trees, some cliffs as well, some rock cliffs, and all of this bundled together to you can get it either on Gumroad for £3 or you can get it on Patreon for £3. So it's very cheap, but they're quite useful. They've got LODs and everything that you would need for your project. So that's on top of the cloud material that you're going to learn how to make today yourself anyway. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Please leave a like and comment and subscribe to my video. Please come with your own suggestions. I am really thrilled to have a conversation with you, with all of you, people who want to create just like myself, who want to learn, who want to develop, because I don't have all the answers and I probably never will, but I'm trying my very best to put a good product out there. So if you guys have your own input and your own feedback, I am more than happy to listen to it. So without any further delay, let's go right into the scene and have a look what it's all made out of, and let's put the cloud material together. So let's begin. So we are in Unreal Engine 4.27, and this is the project that I was talking about, where you can find your clouds. Now I'm just going to move up this hill so you can see the clouds in action. This is the speed that I've set them up at. They're moving obviously quite fast. You can also notice that the color, the light in the scene changes based on where the clouds are. So if they're blocking the sun, obviously the color in the environment or the brightness in the environment does change. By the way, I am also able to walk on water. And this water material is also special as well, because it does create like these lines wherever geometry is. Again, all of these plants have not been manually placed here using instances. They've just literally been created based on the texture that's below them. But let's not digress from that. Let's just look at the actual clouds. So this is all that we need for our clouds to work. We have an altitude curve, which I'm going to show you how to set up. A cloud atlas. This is where the altitude curve is a part of the atlas. Basically, this helps to work out the depth of the cloud, sort of how should I say, intensity of its color, but at the same time it just darkens or brightens it up or makes it disappear entirely. dissipates it. This is a cloud mask. So if I double click this, what you're seeing here is just it's an alpha texture that is, compression. So is a mask basically for our clouds. This is what drives some of the masking of the cloud texture. This is a Perlin, virtual texture Perlin texture. This volume texture is part of Unreal Engine, so you will find it within your project files. But I'll show you that when we get to that point. We have a material, and then we have the instance of that material. The reason why we have an instance is because a lot of this is driven by parameters. So just to give you an example, what I mean by driven by parameters, but of course I'm sure you already know what this means. But if I set the speed to 5, so this is just the overall cloud speed. As you can see now, it's moving incredibly fast. And then you also have X and Y. So if you want your clouds to move faster in one direction than the other, or also change the direction in which they actually go to. So the cloud speed can be increased to 10, for example, and then just put a lot more in the cloud speed X. So the clouds will go into one direction. But depending on what value you put in there, the direction will shift. Then we have, we've got a phase shift. So as you can see, it's creating these sort of wispy looking clouds. You've also got the tileable scale. So this basically, just messes around with the tileability of the scale, but it doesn't really affect the quality of the clouds themselves. They'll sort of, you see, at some point the texture starts going upwards. So it's like how much of the texture of the virtual texture is being laid flat for it to be used in a volumetric way. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but I hope I am. Right, then we've got this option here where it says cloud detail scale. So when you use this setting, it actually starts using less resources, and you can see the clouds are starting to look a lot less detailed if you do that as well. And then we have the virtual texture scale. So if you increase this a lot, then your virtual texture will be far and wide in between its spaces. So the resolution of the texture is being magnified. If you decrease it, as you can see, the texture starts repeating itself, starts tiling itself quite a lot, and then it just looks like a huge repetition. So we obviously don't want to do that, so we'll keep it at about 40. So bear in mind that these clouds do repeat themselves over and over again, but depending on the scale, then they're either, you can see that pattern or not. Then you're going to have a lot of other options in here, like this is the Nimbus. So this is going to add, it's about double layering of the clouds, and also about their density. So for example, this is the Nimbus, meaning the top layer. So it's just affecting that layer rather than the bottom one as much. And you can see now that I've just added the second layer into the whole thing that just covers the top one. Again, all these sort of settings we'll use them when we get to them. But yeah, these are all the parameters that will drive this. And again, we're going to set these up in the tutorial, and they're also part of the project file. So now let's move to the first step of this tutorial, which is basically setting up the material for it, because that's the foundation of the whole project. The volumetric cloud is just a normal volumetric cloud that you drop in the scene when you have a normal Unreal Engine scene, and we just put our new material in it, and that's what drives the whole thing. So if I would revert this to its usual, this is the volumetric cloud. But you can see the performance on this is definitely higher than the volumetric cloud that I've created, because mine is a lot more cinematic. But this is the one that Unreal Engine ships with, and this is the one that I'm going to show you how to make. So yeah, let's get started on that. So we'll start off by creating a new folder for the tutorial, and I'm going to create a new material in here called M Volumetric Clouds. That's fine. Then we'll double click the material, and basically, inside of it, we want to select the actual material itself and change it from a material domain, the one that's surface, we're going to change it to volume. And then the three options that we're going to use here are the albedo, emissive color, and extinction. So the first thing is we want to add a parameter. So by pressing 1 on the keyboard and left clicking, you can add a simple parameter, and we'll leave it at 0. Well, actually, it's not a parameter. It's more of it's just a number, just a value. A parameter would be if we right click it and we convert it into a parameter. Then we can node this over into the emissive color, and we leave it to 0. Now, what we want to do is we want to do a color sample a cloud sample attribute. So let's search for cloud sample attribute. So this is something that you have in Unreal Engine, and we want to use the normal attribute in a layer. Normal altitude layer in altitude. I've got a problem with reading these. Normal altitude in layer is what it's called. This is what we want to put through into our albedo. We want to have 2 different colors in the albedo. So there's the top layer and then the sort of the in-between layer or the middle layer that we're going to want to have. So in order to add 2 colors, just with number 3 on the keyboard being pressed, just left click into the scene and this will drop down a material. Now we're going to change this to a sort of a light gray like that. And then we'll add another color in the same way, and this will make it into sort of a light blue, but we can change that later anyway, so it's fine. Then we want to lerp between the 2, so let's bring in a lerp, sorry, not this one. We want to bring in just a normal, fine, interpolate. There we go. This is what I wanted. It's just whenever I type in lerp, it doesn't bring me the proper values. This remained black because when I've selected the color that I wanted, the light blue, I've got to also bring up the saturation of that. Sorry, the brightness of it. So now it's the color that I want. So we're gonna put this into the B input, and then this into the A, and with a norm altitude in layer, we're going to put that into the alpha, and then we're going to add a multiply node in here as well, and then we want to bring this over into our albedo, and then this one into our A value, so this one over here, and this into the B value like that. Okay, and then we're going to Control W with the multiply selected, and then we can put this over into the A value and then connect this over into the extinction. So now we need the rest of our parameter to feed into the second part, which is this B value over here, right? So the first thing we want to do is want to set up the volumetrics. So there's a volumetric advanced output that we can search for. So volumetric advanced output, but we want the output, not the input. And this has a couple of options, and you can see in here it's got phase G, phase G2, blend, and so on. So we want all of these to have their own sort of parameters. What you'd want to do is basically press 1 on the keyboard so you can add a value, and then you can connect that over there. But then what you want to do is convert the parameter and actually call it phase G. Oh, sorry, not haze. We want to call it phase G. And we'll do this for every one of these nodes in here, apart from the conservative density, which is something that this is something that we're going to have to bring in from a different node. But I'm going to add parameters for all of these, and again, I'll name them exactly as what you see the inputs in here are. Basically, there's no point in giving them any other name unless you want to. One important thing after adding these parameters, it's very good that you go in here and you start changing their default values. So for this one, I'm going to use 0.65. These are values that I've worked with to say that they give me the best sort of result as a default value. So we leave that at 0. This one is minus. I've got them written over, because obviously I wouldn't remember all these numbers, so I've got them written on the side just so I can put them in here. But basically these are the numbers that I am using to make sure that the effect looks right when you put the default settings. So 0.1024, and here for this, and then this is a 0.2453. So all of this is now set up these are the sort of the volumetric is set up, and now we need to move on to basically connecting this multiply and this not together, but because we're doing them from, you know, sort of like to the end, from the end to the start, rather than the from the start to the end. And I find that to be more, when I'm doing a tutorial, I find that to be a lot better for explaining it. So we're going to take this another multiply node and bring it over here. This we can connect over into the B value, and this point we can connect it over into this conservative density that we talked about earlier. Now, because this feeds into the conservative density, we can add a new parameter in here. We can call it, we need to convert it to a parameter and then call it maximum density. And we could put that to a 0.1, because any value on this higher than 0.1 will greatly increase the density of the clouds. With that done, in here we want to add a saturate node over into this multiply. So that's sort of like a clamp that we're adding in. Then we want to add a add node, oddly enough. So we plug this into the saturate node. So at this point, this is what blends, blends and control our cloud. So this is where the blend is coming from, and this controls the density, right? Okay. So now we want to the next one that we want to do is the stratus of the cloud. So in order for us to do that, we're going to use another multiply node. So let's just bring that over into here. I'm actually going to construct this down here so that, it's not, it looks, so, it blends okay. It blends well. So we're going to add this into the B value. Again, one thing that you can do is you can select all of these nodes or all of these and press Control C. Sorry, I thought it was Control C, wasn't it? We can right click it and just say create comment from selection, right? Oh yeah, Control C, I think that's in Blender. So we can type in here volumetrics, and that's the volumetrics of our part. We can call this density. And then, as I said, the next thing we're going to do is the main sort of stratus of our cloud. So we need to get another saturate over in here, and we'll feed this into the second channel, the multiply. We need to bring in a cheap contrast, which we can then link over into the saturate node. This has a contrast value, so we can add a parameter in there and link it over into the contrast and convert that into a parameter, which again we can call at this point stratus contrast. And then we need to bring in another add node, and you'll see why all of these, how they all link together. So connecting this over into our input for the cheap contrast, and then we need to bring a lerp, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'll just multiply this exact lerp from here. Now you can see that the lerp, the contrast A and the constant A and constant B, these are actually values, so you can set those to something. So we're going to put a value between -1 and 1, so B is going to be 1. And then constant alpha, we're not going to put anything in there because we're actually going to feed in another parameter. So this goes over into the B value. And this parameter, we can convert into a parameter and we can call it stratus coverage. So this will make obviously our clouds cover a lot more area than, or none at all. So we can put that to 0.5 in terms of its value, of its default value, and we can leave the contrast to 0. Now we can add a multiply node over here that we're going to link into our add node. And this multiply node, we want the second value to be 2, so we want to multiply by 2. We can add a subtract math node over into our A value, which is not, we only put the value into the B one, not the A. And then we need to add another saturate. So saturates all over the place really as you go along. This subtract, we want to subtract by 0.5. So 0.5 like that, okay. And the saturate node now connects into another multiply. Honestly, these things are, you know, you've got to do this so many times of just linking nodes after nodes after nodes. You know, it it's a really a ball ache, but then the result is really worth it. So what we're going to do now is we're basically going to have two textures, two virtual textures, two volumetric textures, each of them with a different scale, and we're going to blend them together. So we're going to do the first one now. So we've got an add node, and then we can multiply this and add another one over here. This add node goes into the first value of the multiply, and then the second one doesn't actually have any, there's nothing, you know, we've got to link some another node in there. So with this add node, we can bring in another cheap contrast. So we'll put that over into this value. Now, we want this node will connect to all the detail of the cloud. So we're going to add a new parameter here, connected to the A value. Okay, and we'll convert this to a parameter and call it detail, add detail amount. That should be fine. Okay. So we'll leave B for now not connected in the multiply because that's a different branch there. Well, actually, no, we can bring in another multiply. Let me just bring another multiply over here, which we can then connect over into this multiply and to this add node over here. Okay, the cheap contrast will be connecting into a max node, and the max node obviously goes into the input. We can add a new parameter over into the contrast. The contrast parameter, the contrast always is a value, so it's just a value that you want to insert. So we'll convert that into a parameter and we'll call it cloud detail contrast. Okay, and once we have the max in here, we need to connect a 1 minus x. So you literally type in 1 minus like that, you see, and you can connect that over into the B value. And now we want to bring our volumetric texture. So we'll search in for a texture sample, just a normal texture sample, and then we can search in here the texture sample that we need. So to bring it in, just click over here and then type in VT, and this will bring a bunch of textures. And you can see we've got in our volumetric content volume textures. That's basically the texture that we want. You can see that vector displacement type maps. This is the one that I'm using in the current cloud, and this is the one that we can bring in. So we brought that in, and we'll not do anything with the RGB for now, but instead we are going to link the green channel over into our max node, and we're also going to connect it over into our 1 minus. Okay, and this is basically running it once through the max node, and then once it's doing a 1 minus x on this green channel as well, and feeding it into the cheap contrast. Okay, now we'll move on to the other multiply node over in here. We don't yet have a value for our B, but instead what we do need to do is actually duplicate this texture that we've got over here. Yeah, and we can link over the R channel. Sorry, no, the RGB channel. We can bring that over into this multiply into the A value over here. Okay, now all of these are in error because they're not yet fully connected as they should. Okay, so this texture as well will have a different sort of UV than this one up here. Okay, now the multiply the multiply that we've got feeds over into the multiply of this other texture over here. We want to bring in another cheap contrast and bring bring another cheap contrast over in here as well. And this one will link to yet again another green channel from here into the input. I think I may have made a mistake over on the max. Yeah, on the max I need to bring in the red channel rather than the green one. So we've got red over here and then green in the 1-, so it's not green, it's red. Okay, I know it's a bit confusing because trust me, I'm getting confused as well, especially when I started to put this all together. Okay, so we've got the cheap contrast over here. This can connect into an add node, so let me just duplicate one of those. And then we want to duplicate the add node again and bring it over into the B value. Now, we need two parameters, one of them connecting over here and the other one connecting over into our add point. We can rename this to Cloud Nimbus, so CN detail contrast, and then this is going to be CN detail add amount. Okay, this add node will go into a multiply node like that, and then the texture, the blue channel of this texture that we've added earlier, is going to be connected into our B value over here, and then also connected into the multiply node that we put over here. This multiply node we don't have where to connect it as of yet, because we have to link it into the Nimbus that we're going to be making later on. Okay, now we've obviously this is now finished over into what I would say over to this point is now finished to the saturate point. But now we've got these multiply nodes over here that we still, sorry, not the multiply, these textures that still need connecting further along. So we're going to add another add node over here and connect it into the UVs of this texture. Okay, and you can see now it's no longer an error. But this, we don't have anything to connect it to yet, apart from continuing the texture further in here. And I need another multiply node. And the multiply node connects over into the A value. We will need a divide over here to connect into the B value. Okay. And then we also will need another multiply that we can put over in here and connect it into the B value. These are going to be inputs from somewhere else, so it's from another category. We want to add a parameter over here and connect it into our A value. And we will use this. So this, as you can see, feeds into the UV. So we can then do over here, we can change this to volumetric texture, cloud, detail, scale. So this is going to give the detail. This is basically creating the detail of our cloud, and this is telling it at what scale should this texture be sampled at. Okay, and we're going to put that to the default value of 40. And we're going to have to multiply this value by 10,000. We'll try with 10,000. If we get a problem with that, we'll change it later on. Okay. Now we also want to give it the absolute world position. So sorry, make sure when you click it that it's actually set up to absolute world position, including material shader offset. Okay, and that connects over into our divide. Okay, now this particular this parameter here, this multiply and this divide and even this add, we can copy and paste and bring them down here, and these will connect into this UV. Okay, we can rename this parameter to be VT cloud scale. So this is not the detail, this is just the cloud themselves, the scale of the clouds themselves. we need to multiply this by 100,000 because it's taking into account the entire volumetric itself. Okay, and then the absolute world position will feed into this divide over here, and then we have not yet got we've not yet done the panning. So this add node over here and the other one over in here will all connect. Well, we'll connect at some point into a panning node, which gives it the ability to basically move. So the cloud speed is set up by that. So we're actually going to apply what we've done so far, although we're going to have errors, but that's fine. Oh yeah, we haven't yet set up an additive blend mode. So if we select the material, you've got in here a blend mode, so you want to set that up to additive. Okay, so far the material isn't actually functioning properly anyway. So right, okay, let's just do the panning. So for that, we're going to add a make float free. So we're going to have an X, Y, and Z value. The Z value, we don't care about that because our clouds are not going to move upwards. They're just going to move, backwards and forwards and left to right and so on. So we want to have two parameters over in here, at which point this is going to be cloud speed X, and this is going to be cloud speed Y. Okay, and these are all connected into our make float. We want to bring in a divide node over here. Actually, let me just push these further away, and I'm actually going to select all of this, bring it further down, and create a comment, and I'm going to call this the stratus. Okay, and these over here is going to be the panner, right? So we've got a divide. We want to put 100 as the B value. So we're dividing the cloud speed by 100. Sorry, did I put that? No, I put it at 1. Okay, so 100. And this parameter can be at a value of, now we'll do a value of 5 actually. And we're also going to give these a default value of 0.7, maybe 0.7 as well. And that one remains as 0. We convert this into a parameter. We call it cloud speed. So this basically gives us the total cloud speed of the other two X and Y. So these connect over into the multiply node like that. And we're going to duplicate the multiply node and duplicate it again. We're going to add a time input. Yeah. And we're going to put that into our A value. We want to make sure that it's ignoring pause. And then this is going into the B value, and this is going into the A value, and we're multiplying it by 1.05. Sorry, 1.05. Okay, so this multiply will need to connect over in the B value over here, and then this multiply will connect into the A value like that. But then also this multiply needs to connect into our add node over here. So I'm just going to bring that down like that. And now we've got both of our textures connected to a sort of a panner kind of effect. Okay. The next thing, so this is, we're going to call this, cloud panning. So we know what this is, right? This is the function that it serves. Now we're going to move on to the phase shift, and we're also going to move on to the tiling noise of the volumetric. So for the phase shift, we are going to bring our multiply node. It's always the multiply node, you see. So bring up a multiply node, And let's bring up a mask as well. But in order to get a mask, you need to component. You need to type in component mask, okay? And we'll leave it to R and G, which could also be translated to X and Y. And we'll connect our multiply over in there. We want to multiply to be by 1.5. And we're going to connect this multiply node over into it. Okay, the mask will leave where it is for now. We're just going to duplicate it once. Duplicate the multiply node twice as well. And this connects over into our mask. We're going to add a parameter here. And with a default value of 0.2. We're going to name it Cloud Phase Shift. This connects over into our B value. I'm going to add a divide, I love divisions, right? Divide node into here and connect our cloud phase shift, and this goes into the A value. But we are going to divide it by 10, so there's nothing going into the B value. Now, what we're going to do is the texture, not this one, but this one, okay? The RGB value of this texture, we're going to bring it up and connect it over into the B value of our multiply node over here. Let me just pull it in like that. And then over into the A value of this one. I know it looks a bit stretched, but it is what it is. Right, so this is what's going to do our tiling, our phase shift. So we're going to right click and just call it phase shift. That's the purpose that it serves. Okay, and now we're going to go into our tiling noise. So for that, we need to bring in the world position. And again, make sure that it's set up as absolute world position. Let's bring up our mask yet again. Connect it like that. Bring my good old buddy, the multiply node. And bring in a parameter, connect it over to the A value. And the multiply itself, we're going to have to put the same value that we used in the past, 100,000. This is both of these nodes that we've the multiply and the mask are going to connect into a divide node. Okay. Now we want to add a add together. So we'll connect this over into the first one, add in a second add and connect it over here like that. So we've got two B values. So this is where this mask is going to go to. And this is where the other mask is going to go to. Now we want another texture sample. And this is going to use a texture that I have got in here, cloud mask texture. This is I'm going to put this into, I'm just going to drag it actually into the material. I'm going to put this texture into the description below so you can get it yourselves, because you're not going to find it in Unreal. And for some reason, Unreal Engine has just stopped working. I don't really know why. Yeah, I don't know what happened with Unreal Engine. It just stopped working there. So with the texture that we just dragged in, again, it's going to be in the description below. Make sure that the sample type is set to masks in case it doesn't do that. Connect this over to UVs. And this particular texture, we need to connect it into one of the multiply nodes from down here. And that will be the one where we've connected it over into the details. So this value has to go all the way in here into the green channel of this texture. Okay. Now we're going to use this again. We're going to use the blue channel as well, but we need to, this is for the Nimbus. So the Nimbus of a cloud is basically the part of the cloud that creates that's the darkest part of the cloud that just rains, creates this layer of thick cloud from which rain can start pouring. That's sort of the definition of a nimbus. Okay, so we're going to bring an add node over here, and we're going to bring in a subtract as well, and we want to subtract by 0.5. Connect the add node over into the A value, then bring in a multiply. So we're subtracting by 0.5, then we're multiplying by 2. So put that into the A value. Let's get this another multiply node down here. And this is the breakup amount. So this is going to, this parameter here is going to break up the clouds. The nimbus of the clouds, that is, not the clouds themselves. And we're going to set that to minus 0.1. Okay. And this connects over into our add that we've added earlier. So actually, let me just put it further back here so the nodes look a bit nicer. Okay. And this multiply, we're going to get another add value, bring it over here, connect our multiply over into the A value. Now we want to do a size of the nimbus itself, so we're just going to do a parameter where we're going to put a value of 0.5, convert to parameter. So nimbus size. I'm also going to add an linear interpolate node over here and connect our parameter into the alpha. The interpolation is again between -1 and 1. So you've got over in here -1 and then 1. We connect that over into the B value. Let's bring our good old cheap contrast into the mix again. Put the A value in the input. We want to add another parameter for the contrast. Oh, as I said to you, you're always going to put in a parameter for these. So contrast, okay. And we want to saturate this entire branch that we've created here. Let's duplicate the multiply. We'll just leave this here. We'll duplicate another multiply and connect the subtract over into the A value. And this multiply goes into the A value of this one. We're going to duplicate the saturate node again. And I'm going to need another subtract. So I'm going to bring that in as well. This must be so freaking annoying to just keep doing this. So we're subtracting by 0.5, which is great. I want to multiply by 2 again in here. And now we want to set up the nimbus cloud density parameter. So we can actually take this lerp and this parameter from here. Add the add node, sorry. Multiply goes into A, the lerp goes into B. This we're going to call CN cloud density, okay. And this will go into a saturate node. By the way, guys, we're almost done, just so we know. So it's not this hell is going to end soon. So we've got another multiply there, and we want to do another parameter. So I'm just going to copy paste this one and rename it to CN max density. So this just gives us density. This parameter, by the way, we want to put it to a value of 1, and this parameter we want to put it to a value of 0.2, and we'll connect that into the multiply. Okay, and this node, because you can see this entire sort of thing that we created here, this node actually will connect into this add of the density over here. Okay, so this is This is now sort of completing that area. Okay. Now we've got a multiply right about here. No, sorry. I'm just trying to check to see which of the multiplies. So I've got a saturate, which then links into a multiply. No, that's not right. I think I've made a mistake here. So I've got to duplicate this, delete this multiply, and add a subtract over here. We'll put this multiply up here, and then this multiply that you're seeing connects all the way at the bottom with this one. Like that. Okay. Okay, so that's done. Now we've got this multiply that needs connecting over into, we need to create a particle, a cloud sample attribute. So we're going to do that somewhere around here. So let's type in cloud sample attribute. You remember the cloud sample attribute, and we'll do, we'll have to connect this, but let me just first have a look over here at these nodes, because they're not yet fully connected, I don't think. Actually, no, this is right. We just got this subtract here that needs connecting as well. Okay, so we're gonna right click and we're gonna type in curve atlas row parameter. So this is it. We don't need to do any sort of, well, it's going to have a parameter. We can rename it. We can call it altitude curve or something, and then we can connect this to over here, and then the red channel, we want to bring it down. Oh, sorry, now this is going to be confusing for you. Over here, basically. So we need to connect this into the R channel, like that. And now we need a green channel to go over into this subtract that I told you guys about earlier. Okay. Now we do have an error because we don't have, it says right here in the stats, the curve and atlas are not currently set. So we've actually got to create those. So we need a curve and an atlas. Okay. So in order to do that, let me just apply the material again with the error. It's fine. So over in here, let's just go in our tutorial folder. We do need to create this altitude curve, right? And I'm going to show you how to do that. The atlas is just something that you create an atlas and you add the altitude curve to it. That's the atlas that you're going to have to fit in here before you can put the curve anyway. So I'm just going to go into over here, right click, go over into miscellaneous, and then look for a curve atlas. So just going to name it curve atlas. Okay. And then I'm also going to right click, go into miscellaneous and create a curve for it. And then I'm going to select curve vector. No, actually, no, it's curve. Yeah, curve. Let's try with curve vector. So we're just gonna, well, yeah, we'll just leave it to curve. Okay. No, actually, no. It's not a curve. We need a linear curve. It needs to be a color curve. So go into miscellaneous, select. Damn it. Not the curve atlas again. So miscellaneous, curve, select linear color, type in as curve, and you can see what's, it's a gradient basically from black to white. So we'll double click it, and this is what we've got in here, right? Now, what we need is this. We can add in more nodes if you want to, or you can move them around, So we don't need this node here at the top. We can delete that one. okay? But we need two, so we need two nodes here. Now this is, if you right click it, it says in here opacity, so you turn that to 0. And you can click this and right click it and opacity and turn that to 0. Okay, and this is giving us an opacity, and these are not giving us any opacity. We'll leave that where it is there. We don't need to bother with it. Okay, now this is the line. This is the sort of the color that we have in our scene, and these are more lines that we can bring in if we add more points. So the first one over here. So if you right click it, it needs to be at 0 opacity and time 0.788. Okay, that's what we wanted. The center one, if you right click that, it's a 1 opacity and 0.9 in terms of time. And then the third one, we want the time to be set at 1. Okay. Now this point over here on this curve, if you select it, you can see the numbers on the left right here. So if I do like, you can see where my mouse is actually. Come on, this should be working, right? So these two values, you can see these two values over here. This is, these are the sort of the, well, these are the X and Y of these, right? It's this number and this number. So if we select this point, we can right click it and we set it to auto, which gives it a nice curved look. And we've got these handles if we want to play around with them as well to give us a better, more shapes. You will see the color in here shifting as we do this. Okay, and we want to change this to a 0.9 and 1, which is already set at, which is fine. We'll leave it there for now. Now we can right click over here and add a key and bring this key upward. And now this brings a green color, right? You can see that. And it starts at 0, which is fine. We can add multiple keys to it. So we've got these two keys. Both of these keys, I want to right click them and switch them over into auto. So they're a lot smoother like that. And then the first key, want to set to 0.1 and 0.25. We're trying to create a gradient, like I said. So if you actually look over here, the gradient is being formed as we play along with these curves. The second point, we want it to be at 0.4 and 0.4, like that. And then we want to add another point, another key, and we want that to be at 0.7 and 0. Sorry, not that one. I've made a mistake. It's this point here, which, by the way, we need to set up to auto as well. But with that point selected, it's 0.7 and 0.225. Okay, now I want to add another key, bring it above over here. Again, move it over into this nicer, as I said, into a nice curve, into a nicer curve like that. And then that point is 0.8 to 0.6. I was very close. And then it goes to infinity, and that's what we leave it. The color now goes to infinity. The next thing we want to do is we want to add another key here, bring it up, and now it's the blue color that we're bringing into this mix. Now the blue color, as you can see, it's got 1 point here, and we've got 2 points on it. So the first point, which we can right click and turn into an auto, sorry. The first point we can set at 0.96. And this value, we'll leave it at 0. And then this point, which will bring it over here. The reason why it's doing that is because I've literally, it was to the left of this point. So this point, we'll leave it as what it is here, which is a linear point. but we'll put it at 1.006. So that's the value that I did, and 1.02. And we're going to add a new key, a new point, bring it over all the way to the bottom. And we want this particular key to be at 1.06, like that. Okay. Now what you can also do is we can add another key, bring it up. Actually, sometimes you want to add another key like that to be able to bring another color, but then delete this one. You see that? So we've now separated. We've got a red, we've got a R of the RGB channel, right? So you see what I mean? This is how these are being used. And this point, we need to bring it somewhere around here, and I want to move it over to be smoother. And I'll add another key, and I'll put this over to the bottom, like that. By the way, you can change these real time, and you'll see how the changes are being made. So we'll put that at 0, 2, and 1. So it's quite high. Make sure it's set to auto. And then this one, I want it to be linear, and I want it to be at the bottom, and the value of it to be at 0.4. Like that. And now if we have a look, this is our curve. Okay, and if we go back into our, this is, you know, it's very reminiscent of this one. So that's the curve. So when we double click the curve atlas in here, right, you can actually press this plus button and then type in the name of the curve that we created, which is this one. You see, this is the one that we created. And we've now added it over to the atlas. Okay, now we can close this. We can close the curve, and over in here we need to first select the atlas. So that's our well, actually, let me just make this smaller just to make sure that I'm dragging in the right one. So I'll put the cloud, and then I'll put the curve. It won't allow you to put the curve in if you haven't added the atlas. Okay, and that basically sorts that part of the material. Now we'll do a trial and see if we get any sort of errors when putting it into the scene. Okay, another thing that we might want to do also is, if you want to sort of rename this into, so this would be the Nimbus here. Oh, what have I done? Sorry. So select everything, right click, and we can now create comment, call it Nimbus, and there's one more part here to connect, which is the the blue channel of this texture over into our add node over here. So that completes it. And over in here, this is the cloud sample, so there's nothing there to be done anymore. We can now apply. We've got no errors in the material. Just gonna set it to one side. This is the one that's currently running, you know, the one that's already set up. And I'm now right clicking it and creating a material instance. So this is this is the generic cloud, and this is the one that we've just created, and drop it in. And this is the effect that we're getting. So right now, if we double click the material instance and we bring it over, you can see all of our parameters in here. Okay. So what we've got, the speed, we can set that to 1. So now the clouds move a lot slower. We can look at the breakup amount. You can see how this just brings a lot more clouds if you increase the value. This is the density of the clouds. So this just makes the entire sort of sky full of clouds. Then you've got a contrast. You can see it just changes the contrast of the clouds, makes them a lot more, a lot darker. So pretty much brings more clouds in the scene. The density, I believe this won't. Yeah, the density of this won't work unless you're actually using a value on the in the contrast itself. So if, for example, you're turning the contrast like that, you see how the density sort of brings that in or takes it away, which helps build up the scenes a bit more. So I'm just going to revert back to normal settings. This is the detail amount. Again, this won't work unless you actually have these on. So if you don't have the cloud Nimbus on, none of these settings will work. Then we've got a detail amount of the clouds. So the cloud Nimbus is above this layer. So if we add that in, that is basically filling parts above and maybe even below. I'm not really sure. We've got the maximum density of the detail amount, multi-scattering contribution. I can't remember how this is linked, but I believe, yeah, you're going to have all of these active. This is the Nimbus size. These are the clouds from, you can see the layer above. That's just further increasing. The phases are, to be honest, I never really use a phase on these, but yeah, this is a stratus contrast. So as you can see, this is a far better setting to build up these clouds. By the way, the settings inside here, you see the layer, bottom altitude, and all these settings do actually work as well on top of the settings that we've done in our material. Yeah, so you can still have height and so on. Okay, these are the scales. So I've shown you this all this at the beginning, but you can see them now functioning. So that's the scale of the cloud. This just gives it a more detail, and so on. And that's really all there is to this material. This is how you get these clouds functioning, and how they automatically block out the sun and they create rays. You don't see any rays because the directional light itself doesn't have the rays on, but the light shafts on to an extent that actually would bring us would create that sort of effect. Let me just try and bring that in. Okay, so there you have it. You can see it now. You can see those rays better now. See that? There are your rays. They look so much more cinematic. But yeah, these clouds are now moving, and they can be very, very realistic depending on the settings that you're running with. And that's about it, really. Yeah, thank you for following the tutorial. But I do hope you guys found this tutorial useful. I know I've learned quite a lot putting this together, and I can answer most of your questions, I'm sure of it. I am using a more advanced system for volumetric clouds, which is through a dynamic weather system, but that's something for another day, far more complicated topic than what I've got here. Basically, the scene is all yours if you wanted to get it. It's just £3, as I've said, on Gumroad or on Patreon if you want to support me. But then you've got all these assets. You've got about 4 or 5 different type of plants, 3 different type of trees, 2 different type of rocks, a material shader for water, a material shader for your ground that again has a biome connected to it where it populates the map with plants based on height and the texture used. The map itself, as you scale up in size, again, it will populate those the landscape with rocks if it's a mountain, with a cliff sort of face, again, if it's very tall. So it does it automatically as you sculpt the environment. And then you've got the volumetric clouds, which are just really nice to tie into the scene, and they can be made to look very stylized using the settings that I provided to you. Again, this material can be expanded upon and more things could be done to it. You can change its colors, you can do all sorts of things. It's just really your imagination is the limit. So Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, keep creating and keep making, or whatever. Creating and making is the same thing, isn't it? But anyway, keep going. Thank you.